7 seasons have come and gone here in the Utah State Dynasty, and in Season 7, we went 16-0, winning the national championship, along with the Cotton Bowl, Rose Bowl, and Pac-12 championship game. It's the first time in this series that any team has finished the season undefeated and perfect. I think I knew from early on that this was going to be a special team. We defeated Oregon 27-14 in a game that we pretty much dominated from start to finish. We then beat Arkansas on the road in dominant fashion, and then had our conference play start with a victory over California following an Arizona State BYU victory. We had our first close game and our only close game of the entire season in Week 8 on the road against Notre Dame. We won that game 31-24, but we would see them later on down the road. We would then win against Stanford and Utah at home before blowing out Boise State and Washington State, and then ending the season on the road against Memphis in a 31-7 victory. And then the postseason play began, and we took on Notre Dame again and won that game 42-0, holding them to less than 1 yard per rush. It was a negative rushing day pretty much for Notre Dame, as Jared Kunaszyk only had 22 yards rushing. Anthony Tobin in that game threw for 269 yards with a touchdown and 1 interception, and it was Darrell Ferkser who had the big day. We then got the opportunity to go back to the college football playoff, where we beat Nebraska 41-20. It was a pretty good third quarter for Nebraska, but we ended up pulling away in the fourth quarter and won by 21 points. Defensively, we did our thing yet again. We intercepted 94 overall quarterback Darren O'Malley one time, and then Anthony Tobin threw for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then through the air, Zach Qualls, Darrell Ferkser, and Tyquan Garrett, each over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown apiece. We then got the opportunity to go back to the Cotton Bowl, where we beat Penn State in pretty much dominant fashion defensively. On offense, we weren't too good in that game. Anthony Tobin only threw for 129 yards, only completed 14 passes. Xavier Blunt was kind of the impact guy on the offensive side of the ball, but we intercepted John Adabare one time in that game, and we held 89 overall running back Eli Hargraves to only 20 yards rushing. And then to wrap up Season 7, we were in the national championship against Nebraska, and we won that game 41-20. And then to wrap up Season 7, we were able to win the national championship against Wisconsin 35-20, and Wisconsin gave us a run for our money there in the first quarter. We struggled, we got off to a slow start. Anthony Tobin threw an interception. He ended up finishing the day with 5 touchdown passes, and it was Darrell Ferkser with 4 touchdown receptions and 159 yards. Darrell Ferkser broke the college football playoff record for receiving touchdowns in a game, and then Anthony Tobin tied Joe Burrow and Mac Jones for 5 passing touchdowns in a game. Wisconsin had Hugh Evenson at quarterback, a really good scrambling threat, but of course, 99 overall Lane McGinnis was the guy that we were all worried about, and we pretty much held him in check for the majority of this game. His longest run was 16 yards. I think the difference in this game was Tyree Abraham, the receiver for Wisconsin. I think if Wisconsin throws him the ball more outside of just the first quarter, they have a stronger chance at winning that game, but we were able to kind of lock him down in the second half of that game. And that's how we were able to win a national championship game. Anthony Tobin, 42 touchdowns, passing as a redshirt freshman, only 11 interceptions. Xavier Blunt with 870 yards. He should come back for his senior season. Deshaun Layman, of course, we will be moving on from him. And then Daniel Jones didn't really get the playing time I was hoping for in his true sophomore season. I am still not really decided on what I want to do with him as far as the offseason goes. Do we potentially want to encourage him to transfer? Receiving, Tyquan Garrett had 1,100 yards receiving with 15 touchdowns. And then Darrell Ferkser, 833 yards and 10 touchdowns. Zach Qualls, 833 yards. And then Zach Truin with 680. This was a really solid receiving core here that I think was probably the best that we've ever seen. Darrell Ferkser had a really good final 3 of 4 weeks. Against Penn State was not really utilized all that much. Only 2 catches for 15 yards, but his postseason was really solid. 111 yards receiving against Notre Dame, 110 versus Nebraska, and of course the ridiculous national championship game performance. On the offensive line, we have a couple of guys we're going to be moving on from. John Winter wasn't here his entire career, but he is a senior. Demarius Amaza Jr., so we should have him back for next season. But Steve Giraldo and Alex Tuttle are both going to be moving on, along with Richard Boulware, who was able to fill in at times throughout his career. He'll also be graduating. Defensively, we bring back the majority of our defense, but there are a couple of guys we're going to be moving on from. Andres Sosa, the senior safety, is the first guy, and he's going to be a guy that's pretty difficult to replace. He's been starting for 2 full seasons now. He had 5 interceptions in his junior year and 4 in his senior season for a career total of 9 INTs. He's a no-fly zone kind of player. But of course, I think the guys that we're going to be missing out on the most is Juan Lima. He's 93 overall. He's put together a ridiculous career. 20 sacks here in his senior season. He's for surely going to be more than likely a first-round draft pick if I had to imagine, as he didn't log a sack in the national championship game, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't out there making an impact. He had 4.5 sacks against Memphis, and that was the season high for him, but he had multiple games in which he had 2 or more sacks. And then the crazy thing to think about, Greg Tecklenburg is going to be somebody that we for sure are going to miss. He's a rotational piece, but had a breakout redshirt senior season in which he had 14.5 sacks. He was able to get 2.5 sacks in the national championship game, and I would consider him potentially the defensive MVP. He had 5 sacks earlier in the season against Washington State and has put together a really solid career here in a Utah State Aggies uniform. But that kind of gives you an idea of what the season stats look like. I showed the career stats at the end of the national championship episode. The team stats, we did have the best offense in college football by far. That's obviously because we played 16 games, but we were also the #1 scoring offense in college football. And then when you look at us defensively, we're not going to be on here as a top team, but run defense, we still finished in first place, even though we played 16 games, 3 more games than the team that finished in second place. We also sacked the quarterback 76 times, which is first place by a mile. But we're going to be losing a lot of talent, especially on that defensive line. So the key is to see how much better we can get at that position, or will there potentially be a drop-off? But that's why we're going to head to the offseason and see what kind of team we can put together for Season 8. If you're noticing anything different about this video, it's because I'm doing a live commentary, and that's how this series will be recorded moving forward. I think that you can expect to see 2 or 3 more seasons, and you're not going to see me play every single game or play full games. There's going to be a lot of simulating. It's going to be live commentary. Episodes will be longer, and I think that's the best way that I'm able to wrap up this series appropriately. I can't just end it after this game right here because I want to see how Anthony Tobin's career plays out. So here's a final look at the top 25. We finished #1, receiving all 65 votes in the media polls and receiving all 61 in the coaches polls. Wisconsin finishes 2, Nebraska finishes 3, Oregon finishes 5. And then looking down the board to see if there's any Pac-12 teams on here, Notre Dame will finish 20th, and that is the only other Pac-12 team finishing in the top 25. I think the important thing this offseason is to make sure that we get better in the trenches, and I mean the offensive line and the defensive line. We had a lot of injuries to those 2 position groups this past season. I want to spend my coach points by making sure that our offensive linemen can get an off-season training boost. I also want to make sure that our defensive linemen can get an off-season training boost. So all 20 points will be spent on the offensive line and defensive line in the motivator skill tree. So with that being said, we can officially enter the off-season here. We're going to be able to find out who's going to be moving on from Utah State as we select players leaving. And here is your first look. Zach Qualls is looking to go to the NFL. He's a junior receiver. He's trying to declare early here. Andres Sosa is projected to go in the 4th round. Alex Tuttle projected to go in the 6th round. And then moving on down the board here, Steve Giraldo looks to be a 3rd round selection. You also have Juan Lima, who looks like he's going to be a 1st round selection like I expected. Roy Rush wants to leave, Actually, he's declaring early in this situation because he was a senior that we were trying to redshirt. He's going to try and move on to the NFL along with John Winter, who we were able to bring in the transfer portal last season. So we could try to persuade Zach Qualls to come back, but in this situation with him looking to be a projected 3rd round receiver, I'm not going to try and persuade him to come back. But that's a lot of guys that we're going to be moving on from here. as we look like we're going to have 7 guys potentially drafted here in this upcoming draft. But I could definitely see guys like Greg Tecklenburg or Richard Bulware get drafted in this situation. Maybe even Sateki Luvu gets drafted, or Mike Perkins potentially. I'm surprised Darrell Ferkser is not going to get drafted. Before we get to the transfer portal and offseason recruiting here, we can take a look at the draft results. And we're going to find out that John Winter goes in the first round along with Juan Lima. Zach Qualls is a third-round selection along with Steve Giraldo. And then Roy Rush and Andres Sosa both go in the 4th round. Alex Tuttle in the 5th round. And then Sateki Luvu and Greg Tecklenburg both get selected in the 7th round. So the biggest draft class we've ever had in this series. And I honestly don't think you can really get much better than this. This is a national championship team that just got drafted to the NFL. Wisconsin's running back Lane McGinnis does go in the 1st round. I think as expected, he was a really good running back. I think that our defense was just that good to the point where we kind of made him struggle a little bit. And then Nebraska quarterback Darren O'Malley, who we faced off in the Rose Bowl, I should say, he was also a 1st-round quarterback. So now in this situation, we have a top 3 recruiting class. We've brought in 23 total commits on the season. And so what I'm really thinking about is the fact that we don't really need that many more players in this recruiting class. Charlie Garbutt is somebody that I would be interested in bringing in. Jeremy Funches is an athlete. You know, maybe we could bring him in. And then Donovan Joe is another guy that we are currently going after. Other than that, we have 23 guys committed. I'm not really sure if there's any position group that I really want to go after here in this transfer portal, but you do see guys like Donald Stacy from Cal, who I've talked about so many times when we play those guys, how I really like the skill set that he has. He reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel, and I think he'd be somebody that'd be really fun to have in this offense, so I'm definitely going to add him to our board. Defensive end Glenn Vereen is an Arizona guy, so we'll add him to the board. And then David Myers, transferring from Air Force. You know, he's not committed to the military lifestyle. And then Vince Crispin, same thing. He's in the Army, though, as he's looking to transfer out. There's 4 guys right there that we've added, and those are the only 4 guys at this moment that are interested in coming here. So we'll add them to the board. Donald Stacy is somebody that I would really love to have. So he's going to be the top priority here in this transfer portal class. Really, I don't think there's a point in scouting him, but we have the hours to do so. So let's go ahead and scout him. 99 catching traffic, ridiculous. 88 catching, 93 speed. I want this guy so bad, it's not even funny. We're going to offer him a scholarship, and then we're going to go ahead and send the house to begin everything. We're obviously going to get him on a visit as soon as we can. Not right now because I don't know what his motivations are at the moment. But for now, we'll send the house. We'll put 65 hours on him. I'd love to be able to bring in Donald Stacy. Glenn Vereen here is somebody that I am interested in, but we have guys coming in. There's guys that I plan on moving down the defensive end, so I'm going to kind of lay off of this battle at the moment. Not really sure if that's the right move, but, you know, we have guys that I'm excited about. David Myers is another guy. Like, I don't really think that we need him because we already have 2 centers coming in. When you look at it here, we have J.D. Skillen, who's going to be the starter, and then you have Miguel Baca and Dugans that are going to be 2 freshmen that are coming in to fight for that starting center position. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get him, so we could scout him and see if I like what his strength looks like, and it comes in at 96, so, I mean, how can you not like that strength right there? So we'll put 50, and then 10 and 5 on him to max his points out here. And then Vince Crispin, I think, is somebody that I am interested in scouting at least to see what his speed looks like. 91 speed, 81 man coverage. We don't get a look at what zone is. We like to run a lot more zone than man. We'll go ahead and offer him as well. Might as well. And at least see where we stand in the next week. Donald Stacy's priority number 1, though. He's the guy that I definitely want to be able to bring in. As far as Jeremy Funches and Donovan Joe, I'm actually going to back out of those battles. Charlie Garbutt, we need defensive tackle depth, so we're going to bring him in. I also liked for him being the 747th recruit in the nation. 86 speed isn't necessarily bad, and especially with him being a gem, that could always go up in the future. So that's what we're going to stick with here at the end of week 1 of this recruiting period. I don't expect this offseason to really take that long. There's not a whole lot that we need to really do, as we do get Charlie Garbutt to commit. And then Donald Stacy's the guy that I really want. We'll have to see what that recruiting battle is looking like. We do see Glenn Vereen has locked us out kind of as expected. Donald Stacy now has us at number 1 over Utah and USC. We find out that he likes the playing style and proximity to home, so we may have an opportunity now to hard sell. At the moment, there's just really too many options that involve playing style and proximity to home. You also have one down here that involves conference prestige and then pro potential, so we just don't know enough about Donald Stacy yet. So for the moment, I'm just going to go back to hard selling him, or sending the house on him. That'll max him out at 65 hours, and then we'll also get him in on a visit, though, where we will attack playing style, if I can find it anywhere. So we'll have him attend a practice. For David Myers, we'll have him come with a family visit, as he will come on a visit in week 2. And then for Vince Crispin, there's not really anything we can do right now. We could, of course, have him come in on a visit, and then we could pitch the proximity to home, but there's a good chance that he may have one of these that are in the green where it's an A- or an A or an A+, where the visit would be more beneficial to us. As far as Donovan Joe and Jeremy Funches go, we're going up a little bit on these guys, but I'm not going to put any hours on them. If they still commit, even without us putting hours on them, then I can live with that. But at the moment, if they've committed and we get all 3 of these guys, that's a 29-man class. Let's be honest, I don't need 29 recruits this season. So with that being said, we're going to move on to week 3 and see what those recruiting battles are looking like. Donald Stacy must have had some fun on his week 2 visit. He must have loved the way that practice was going, as we are in first place. Utah is falling behind, and I think that now we still don't really have a great idea of what that third pitch could be, but because we rolled out, more options, maybe we could find out which one would actually work. The conference prestige one, the it's game time, does work in this situation, along with the clutch. So I think our best option here is to, once again, just go back and send the house on him instead of hard selling, because I don't want to swing and miss on what that potential third motivation could be. David Myers looks like he's going to go to Oklahoma. The only thing that could change this is if we go with a hard sell, which we of course could do that, but I don't really know what that, third motivation is. Same thing with Donald Stacy. With Vince Crispin, we do find out that playing style is one of his motivations, so I'm more willing to bring him in on a visit here, and we could go ahead and pitch playing style, so he'll attend a practice as well. So with that being said, we'll go to week 4 of offseason recruiting, and hopefully we see Donald Stacy come across the board, and we do. I've talked about this guy every time we play Cal and how exciting of a player he is. I've brought up the fact that he does remind me of Deebo Samuel in the sense of, I think that you could give this guy the ball in the backfield and at receiver, and he could do some serious damage. Maybe, and just maybe, we change his position to running back and we split him out at receiver at times. I think that could make for an interesting kind of dilemma on offense. We also do bring in David Myers. I'm not sure how. Oklahoma looked like they were going to win that battle, but David Myers must have just loved Logan, Utah. He is from Wyoming, so I guess it makes sense just a little bit. And here in the final week, you see Vince Crispin is pretty close to a commitment. Donovan Joe, he's not really liking the fact we're not going after him. And then Jeremy Funches is here as well. I think in this situation, I'm fine with just letting these guys jump off the board, because we're going to bring in Vince Crispin more than likely. We could even go with hard selling here just to kind of better our chances at bringing him in. So we've hit Vince Crispin with the hard sell. Donovan Joe, Jeremy Funches, we're not going to add any more points to them. We're going to finish up this recruiting cycle, hopefully with a commitment with Vince Crispin. And then we'll see, where do we finish in this year's recruiting class ranking? We do bring in 3-star corner Vince Crispin from Durango, Colorado, so he likes the area. And that does bump us up to now level 27, where we could go on there to try and get even more coach abilities. And I would definitely like to go into this motivator skill tree here, especially with the fact that receivers is going to be an impact position this year because of Zach Qualls deciding to go pro early. But we're not able to get that off-season training boost even if we wanted to. So I think the best thing to do is to go ahead and do it with defensive backs. I think our linebackers are really good. They're really young. There's no reason to, get to tier 3 on those guys. But our DBs, I think it doesn't hurt to try and get an off-season training boost with our defensive backs. So it's National Signing Day here, and let's head over to top classes. We finished with the 3rd best class in college football. Donald Stacy's the 2nd best player that we're bringing in here. I think that Jaquise Tiffin could replace him in the future, but with 4 5-stars, 13 4-stars, and 12 3-stars, that puts us at 3rd in the nation. And then looking at the Pac-12, the 2nd best team was Stanford, and they had a 35-man class as they finished 12th in college football. Cal is a team that is really falling off here in the Dynasty. They've put together some really good seasons, and they've been to 2 or 3 Pac-12 championship games, but they are falling off. Utah as well, a terrible recruiting class, only 10 commitments. I think the Cal recruiting class is worse, though. You only brought in 16 guys, and they were all 2-stars. I mean, that's really bad. I mean, there's MAC teams that are putting together better recruiting classes than that. Most of the MAC is putting together better recruiting classes than that. We've already shown the development traits for these commitments. Derek Haslam is elite. Jaquise Tiffin is star. Rob Hoffman, the #1 tight end, is a star development guy. Miguel Baca, unfortunately, normal. Jameel Bradbury, impact development. Steve Meyer, elite outside linebacker. Richard Boyce, impact. Anthony Biggs is star development, somebody that I'm definitely excited about. Manny B is impact development. Carl Lobato, I wish I was playing this dynasty forever, because Carl Lobato would be the next guy that I'd be extremely excited about. Elite development. Zach Macklin's another one of those guys with elite development. Delonte Dugan's impact development. James Crouch with star development. Vi Tupa with star development. Jeremiah Weigert with normal. Josefa Tung with star. Amari Sneed with impact. Juan Benito with star development. Anthony Murray with impact. And then I'm not sure if we know these ones yet. I'm pretty sure we do. Braden Landers with star development. Ty Woods, impact. Eric Arias, impact. Titus Cushenberry, impact. These are the guys we don't know. Charlie Garbutt, impact. Jeremy Funches does commit. Impact development. Donovan Joe also commits. He's got impact development. Donald Stacy with star. David Myers with elite. That is elite. And then Vince Crispin with normal. I think David Myers could potentially start day 1 for us. But J.D. Skillen's going to probably have a little bit to say about that. 29-guy recruiting class is pretty crazy. I'm actually kind of interested to see how many guys we're going to need to encourage to transfer. But I do have some guys in mind that I want to encourage to transfer that aren't just because I want to cut them, but because I want them to have an opportunity to play at a different location, because they're just not going to get the opportunity here. So when we head to the position changes screen here, it's pretty cool. We get to change guys' positions, obviously, but we get to also see the ratings of the incoming freshmen. Carl Lobato will have 75 overall to start, and I think he's going to be the perfect replacement for Anthony Tobin in the future. The 94 throw power is something that looks really good. I like his 6'3", 214 size that he has. I think that he's going to be the replacement for Anthony Tobin. At running back, we know pretty much everything as far as this goes, except for Amari Sneed. He's going to come in at 66 overall, but he's a receiving back. These guys tend to develop pretty well. At receiver, Donald Stacy slots in as our #1 receiver, just like that, with 89 overall. If we were to try and move him to running back, for example, he would be a 90 overall running back. I think that that's the direction that I'm kind of leaning towards, because Zach Truant and Tyquan Garrett will both start where they're already at, but Jaquise Tiffin could definitely start as a true freshman. And if not him, you have DeMarco Pitts, who's a route runner, and I expect him to get excellent development in this upcoming offseason. So Donald Stacy could definitely become a running back for us. James Crouch will come in as a 75 overall at left guard, so that's extremely solid ratings to begin his career. Miguel Baca enters as a 75 overall, and David Myers may start over J.D. Skillen just because Skillen's going to be injured to begin the season, but Myers only 83 overall to start. At guard, it's a pretty weak position group, but Jeremiah Weigert comes in at 75 overall, and Josefa Tung comes in at 70 overall. At tackle, Vi Tupa comes in as a 75 overall. So some pretty good depth on the offensive line here, if I do say so myself. Anthony Biggs will start as a 75 overall, and LaShawn Johnson looks to be the starting defensive end at left end. But with his 5'11", 232 frame, I just don't think that I can allow him to start because I feel like he would get bulldozed in running downs. Dylan Garrison, of course, will start at right end. Don McClain could start. I mean, could be the backup there, but that defensive line group may be a little weak this season. Scott Flavors, of course, has the career-ending injury, so we're not going to have much to talk about as far as he goes. I'm thinking Don McClain could move back to defensive tackle, where he would be a 75 overall, but our defensive end group is just so, weak at the moment that I'm not sure that's the smartest thing to do. With Rudy Pele, I think the goal was to always move him to defensive end, and I think that right end is where I'm going to want to move him because at the moment, I don't really think that we have a backup that I would necessarily like. We could move him to left end. I think that's probably better. So we'll move Rudy Pele to left end. And then Juan Benito, we're going to move him down to right end where he'll be a power rusher. I don't like his weight, only 228 pounds. That's not really ideal for us. At corner, we have a bunch of guys that will compete for a starting job here. We brought in 3 freshman guys, so maybe we over-recruited this position a little bit as there's a lot of guys on this board. We're going to go ahead and move Eric Hunter. He redshirted last season. He's going to be a redshirt freshman this season. We're going to move him back to free safety where he'll have a chance to at least rotate in and out. As it looks like Derek Haslam could really have a strong chance at starting here in his true freshman season. As far as strong safety goes, I do anticipate Antoine Darby starting there. But I did want to move Steve Ellis to running back potentially. That's something that I've been thinking about for a while now. But maybe he does fare a little bit better at free safety. So we could keep him at free safety, or we could actually just move him over to strong safety where he could be the backup to Antoine Darby. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Steve Ellis to running back. That's what my initial plans were. So that's what we're going to stick with. Steve Ellis will move over to running back. I think that he could be a dangerous player with the ball in his hands. And I am going to make the decision now. Donald Stacy. We're going to move him over to running back where he's a 90 overall. This is his senior season. So I think that this gives him his best chance to getting drafted potentially. And I think that this allows us to be able to move him from running back to the slot. We could split him out wide because unfortunately, I can't put a guy at receiver and then have them play in the backfield at times. If I want him to take on that Deebo Samuel role, which that is the plan for me, then I'm pretty much forced to put him at running back, and then I can put him out there at receiver by doing like manual adjustments when I want to do that. So that's why I'm putting him at running back. Some of you guys might be wondering, like, why are you going to put him at running back when he's a receiver? Well, that's why. He does lose his skills, unfortunately, like his 50-50 and everything like that, but overall, he shouldn't really lose a bunch of his skills as far as catching. 88 catching, 99 in traffic. The route running still going to be excellent. He's not going to lose those skills, but he does unfortunately lose his badges like the 50-50. We have plenty of athletes that we need to find positions for here. So Jeremy Funches is the first guy. He looks like he's probably going to be a running back or receiver for us. We could put him at free safety or strong safety, maybe even corner potentially. I think I'm fine putting Jeremy Funches at free safety. We just have too many corners on roster at the moment, so I think we'll put him at free safety. I'm going to put Delonte Dugans at left guard where he's going to be a 69 overall to start. And that right there pretty much makes it so now that we have pretty much plenty of guys at each position on the offensive line. Donovan Joe, we're going to put him at middle linebacker. He's somebody that could definitely be cut after this season. That's why I really didn't want to recruit him. Zach Macklin is going to be a receiver for us, although he could be an even better tight end or safety, but I think he will fit best at receiver. Braden Landers is a run stopper, but I think that I want to put him at defensive end. I think that's probably where he fits the best, and that's where we need help at the moment. He'd be a 70 overall to start, and he's got like star development, so he's going to get the opportunity to play at some point in his career. And then Rob Hoffman is the last guy, and I'm going to be putting him at tight end, no doubt about it. I think there's a good chance he starts as a true freshman. So with that being said, we've assigned the athletes positions. Now the only thing left to do is really even up this roster. If anything changes as far as where I move guys, I will keep you guys updated. So I'm not a huge fan at what our guard situation is looking like here at right guard. Of course, Edward Lewis, he could develop. Eric Bars could develop. But I do think that David Myers would fit in as the starting right guard at 86 overall pretty well. So we're going to move him over to right guard. Now you're starting to think, well, who's going to start in place of J.D. Skillen? Well, I'm going to try and find that out. And I think Eric Bars is going to be the guy that I want to start at center for us this season in place of J.D. Skillen, at least while he's injured. So our left tackle position, we'll have Diego Warrior start. Chad Turpin will be the backup. And then at left guard, we're going to have Dexter Wall with James Crouch at backup. At center, it's going to be J.D. Skillen, Miguel Baca, and Eric Bars. Dugans did look like he could potentially be a center, but even if that's where we wanted to put him, there's really no chance that he starts. At right guard, it's going to be David Myers with Edward Lewis and Jeremiah Weiger at backup. And then Demarius Ahmad will start at right tackle. I think that the offensive line is going to be weaker this season, but we are banking on off-season development big time this year. At defensive end, this is a weak position group. LaShawn Johnson is in place to be the starter this season. I don't think that's going to actually happen, though. But Dylan Garrison is going to have to be the leader on that defensive line. And then at defensive tackle, it's a pretty deep position group, but I do imagine we're going to cut guys like Gary Russo and Moses Hester. Maybe even Alex Comea gets cut. But it's not a deep group at all, but you at least do bring in Manny B to this recruiting class and Charlie Garbutt. I think Dalvin Kugbila, Jamison Awesome, and Damian Lampman can all hold down that position. Alex Comea may honestly get some pretty good development, so I don't want to jump to conclusions yet. Don McClain could go inside to play defensive tackle where he'd be a 75 overall and then would slot in to be kind of that number 4 or number 5. I think at the moment, though, I'm fine keeping him behind Dylan Garrison. At corner, we have way too many corners. Matt Soliday is going to probably be cut. Max Wolfert will probably be cut, even though he's the slot archetype that I really like. We just have too many guys. Dexter Peavy, unless he gets some crazy development here, we just have way too many corners. At safety, we have 4 at free safety, and we have 3 at strong safety. I think that that's what I'm going to stick with as far as position changes go. There's going to be plenty of guys that we need to cut, but that's the way that I'm going to construct this roster. We will now get the opportunity to see what the training results look like. This is the biggest part of the offseason, and pretty much every offseason that you will do. Let's figure out what has happened. Anthony Tobin is up to an 86 overall as a redshirt sophomore, so he really has separated himself above Stephen Beebe. Stephen Beebe is only an 82 overall, and I have already kind of made the decision in my mind that we will encourage him to transfer. I think that he deserves an opportunity at a different school. Anthony Tobin has certainly separated himself as the starting quarterback on this football team. At running back, CJ Whiting is up to an 87 overall. Daniel Jones up to an 84 overall. Xavier Blunt an 83, but he plays a lot better than an 83. He is the starting running back on this team. And Steve Ellis is an 83 as well. It's actually kind of crazy to see that this is what has happened. Daniel Jones is the next guy that I'm heavily considering encouraging to transfer. That way we can allow him to play at a different school, because we have Donald Stacy who's going to play. We have Xavier Blunt who's going to play. And then it's really CJ Whiting or Steve Ellis who will take on that second role. Daniel Jones could eventually be the starter of this team. I get that. And Steve Ellis could then take on that Donald Stacy role. But I'm not really sure how I want to play it out. I mean, Steve Ellis has decent catching ability. I think that he could take on that role even through some extra years of development. So maybe we do keep Daniel Jones and he just kind of acts as the true backup to Xavier Blunt. And then Donald Stacy's kind of that hybrid player. Steve Ellis is the backup to that hybrid player. So maybe we do keep Daniel Jones around. At receiver, Tyquan Garrett is up to an 84 overall and 99 speed. You talk about development, that's what you want to see right there. 99 speed is some excellent development. I think that he could potentially be our starting slot receiver this season. He could take on that Zach Qualls role. He's got 89 short route running, 82 medium. He's not really a huge deep threat guy, even though he did play that role for us this season. The alternative is DeMarco Pitts, but he didn't get the development that I was looking for quite yet. So I think that Tyquan Garrett probably does play that slot role. If not him, Donald Stacy could play slot. It's just going to be an interesting kind of year. Zach Truen's up to an 82 overall. And then Fatu Bayless and DeMarco Pitts, you can see their ratings there. I do like the speed that DeMarco Pitts gained, though. He came in as an 89 speed, now up to a 92. So if he ever does get the true route running development that we want to see, he could be an excellent slot receiver. Carl Loudermilk's up to an 86 overall, but that's not really going to be because of his receiving ability. He got a little bit faster, I do believe, up to a 79 speed now. Everett Eagles probably looks to be the starter for us. And then these three guys right here, they're all going to be cut. Diego Warrior's up to an 89 overall. That's what you like to see. He will be the starting left tackle for us this season. Dexter Wall didn't get great development. He's an 86 overall. And he's a pass protector, but he's got the 94 strength, which I do like a lot. J.D. Skillen doesn't get development because he's injured. So unfortunately for him, it doesn't look great. Eric Bars will start at center this year, and at least to begin the season, and he isn't that good. So the run game may struggle a little bit this season. There is definitely a drop-off on this offensive line. And then Demarius Ahmad is going to be a 90 overall at right tackle, the number one offensive lineman on this roster, at least while J.D. Skillen is injured. On the defensive line, Rudy Pele at 81 overall. I think that he is going to have a chance to start, but his strength is extremely low. 77 strength is not great. And LaShawn Johnson does have that 91 strength. There's going to be a chance that he actually does start for us this season. Dylan Garrison's a 90 overall, and then McLean and Barry are behind him. At defensive tackle, Scott Flavors does develop, but he's never going to have a chance to play again, unfortunately. When you look at the player card, he's still going to be out for the next 53 weeks. So it's just kind of an unfortunate situation. BJ Garrison, the best linebacker in college football, is up to an 85 overall, or he might have been just around there anyway. But he's a redshirt junior, a couple more seasons of him. And then Christian Stuckey, a 91 overall. Eric Kane, 81 overall. So there's a look at kind of your backups there. And then George Alito. Actually, I think he might have overtaken John Fowler a little bit. And there's going to be a little bit of a battle there at right outside linebacker. At corner, Miguel Catapano is the number one guy. Monte Khan at 2. And then Matt Gage looks like he's going to be the next slot guy for us. But I like the speed that Dexter Peavy has. And I think that actually may allow him to separate himself and take over that slot role. Matt Soliday actually got some pretty decent development here. At safety, Brian Horner's an 83 overall. Eric Hunter an 80 overall. And then Cedric Prince an 81. Antoine Darby only an 80, but I think that he will start because of the speed. So that's the roster there. We have 5 guys that are 90 overall coming into this season, but we do have some pretty solid guys in the 80 overall. I don't think that this team is as good as they were a year ago, but when you have a quarterback like Anthony Tobin, you're of course going to give yourself a chance to win. I'm going to be doing nothing with the custom conferences here in this season. I'm done touching that for the rest of the Dynasty. But now we head to encouraging transfers. We have 93 guys on the roster. We have to get this number down to 85. I think the first place that I'm definitely looking here is at quarterback and Stephen Beebe. And of course, we will check on these guys and see where they eventually do end up. I think Stephen Beebe has a chance to start really early in his career. So we will go ahead and encourage him to transfer. I already talked about all 3 of these tight ends here. Von Dempke is the first guy. Paul Bighill is the second guy. And then Denard Komar, he's also going to be transferring out here. So 5 tight ends on the roster. I think that sounds just about right with me. Rousseau, the redshirt senior, we're going to encourage him to transfer out. Moses Hester, we're also going to encourage him. And then Alex Komea, he's going to stick around. I like the development that Matt Soliday got in the offseason, but I am going to encourage him to transfer as well. I wish that we could look to kick some of these guys out as well, but unfortunately we brought them in this recruiting class. Like Anthony Murray, I don't really want. Titus Cushenberry, I really don't want him as well. And now we're just looking for one guy to cut here, and then we'll have a full 85-man roster. So the final guy that I'm going to cut is going to be Nicholas Blau. And the reason that I'm making this decision is because Vi Tupa is the same class as him. Vi Tupa will redshirt, and he's already a higher overall. We're really just waiting for Tupa's strength to go up a little bit. Blau, I like the strength that he has, but he unfortunately is going to be the last guy that we encourage to transfer. I could go up here to receiver, and I have thought about this and cut Fatu Bayless because we have DeMarco Pitts. But I think that if we allow both of these guys to battle it out for who the next slot receiver on this roster is going to be, I think it's fair that we have both of these guys battle for that job. So Blau will be the final guy that we encourage, and that is 85 of 85 guys on the roster. We will check on where Stephen Beebe goes, though. Once we get to week 0, we'll be able to go look at rosters and get an idea of where he ended up. I just hope he didn't end up at a place like Army, like Miguel Tinker did. So at this point, we can look at the roster and look at skill caps. And I think that's another thing that's really exciting about the offseason. The first guy we'll look at is Carl Labato. Elite development, as the power can get much better. The accuracy can get much, much better. It's no cap. No cap. Elusiveness can get better. IQ and the quickness can all get better. The only caps that he has is the power, which it's already at 94, so I'm not really worried about that. And the health, unfortunately. He does have 83 injury, but stamina at 89, 81 toughness. Carl Labato is going to be really, really good, especially he's already got silver field general. Steve Ellis moved from the secondary all the way to running back, so we can look at his skill caps, and he's going to be really good. The speed is capped, unfortunately, but he can get better as a route runner. He can get better hands. The IQ can go up. The elusiveness, unfortunately, is capped, but 94 agility, 93 juke. I mean, he's in a really good spot already. Amari Sneed, not really sure how much we're going to see of him in his career. The caps are not really great for him. Jaquise Tiffin does have a chance to start or at least play here in his true freshman season. And looking at his caps, the route running can get better. The hands can get better. He's a little capped, but at the same time, he's already in a really good position. Like his hands, he's already got 87 catching. I mean, if that can get up to 90 something, that's perfect. The route running is the one where I'm like, I wish it wasn't capped as much as it is. Jameel Bradbury, I'm pretty sure he has impact development. He does, as his route running can get better. His hands can also get better as well. But the guy that I'm most excited about that we brought in was Zach Macklin. He's got elite development, and he starts out as a 70 overall. His route running can get better. His hands can get better. But for elite development, he's kind of capped. Here's the one that I'm kind of most excited about here, and that's Rob Hoffman, who comes in as a 78 overall to start. He's got 84 speed, 84 acceleration, 84 catching. I think he probably does start week 1 for us. Star development. Now, with tight ends, historically in this game, their skill caps have been awful, and Rob Hoffman's are pretty awful. The hands can get a little bit better, but they're already decent. The route running, short route running is good, but it can get better, I guess. Really what it boils down to is he's only really going to get better as a blocker. We'll just have to see how he plays out, but I just hate how the tight ends develop in this game. James Crouch on the offensive line will have some pretty good skill caps, which is good to see. We've been able to develop offensive linemen here. Delonte Dugans is an impact guy who also has a lot of room to improve. Miguel Baca is normal development, so you get a good idea how these guys will develop. His power at 88 strength already, I don't like that right there. He's just pretty much telling you right then and there he's not going to get stronger. So he may fare a little bit better at guard, potentially. Yusefa Tung is star development, and he's got some pretty good skill caps. But again, the power already capped. He's not going to really get much stronger. I know this is a very repetitive part of the offseason. And Vi Tupa, the reason that we cut the tackle that we did is because Vi Tupa was on the roster, and I'm extremely excited about what he could bring to the table. He's going to get a lot stronger. He's got 86 strength already, but that can get upgraded 5 more times, along with the pass blocking. On the defensive side of the ball, Anthony Biggs, a 75 overall speed rusher. He can get really good. The power rushing is low, which doesn't really make much sense to me, seeing as how he's 6'4", 272 to start. But I think that he's going to have the best chance, potentially, to start at defensive end here. Braden Landers, 74 strength, is pretty low, but he's got star development, and he can get much better. Ty Woods at the other defensive end position has some pretty decent skill caps. And then Juan Benito is the other guy that I want to show here, and he's got really good skill caps. He is a star development guy, and he may be like that Greg Tecklenburg type of player potentially. Manny B is a speed rusher with impact development, and I think the big thing I want to look at here is the strength. He's got 89 strength already. Manny B could be really good in the future. As a run stopper, there's some improvement that needs to be made, but I think he could make an impact. Charlie Garbutt is 86 strength, 3-star that we brought in, who has pretty decent caps. I think he could be a good run stopper, and he could get stronger. The story with a lot of these recruits is, can these guys get stronger? Steve Meyer is a true freshman that's going to have elite development as a run stopper. And this is what I'm talking about. The run stopping is incredible. He can get better in coverage and at rushing the quarterback, but he's going to be one of the best run stoppers on the roster as a true freshman. At corner, the only guy that I'm really interested in talking about right here is Richard Boyce. He is impact development 4-star, and I think that he's going to be a pretty solid starter for us in the future. He probably redshirts here in year 1, but with guys like Miguel Catapano and then Dexter Peavy is going to graduate, he's probably starting for us next season. And then the big one to show, and the last one that I'm going to show, is Derek Haslam, who is the #1 recruit in high school football, elite development, and he's got pretty much an unlimited ceiling, except for zone coverage. Other than that, this guy, he's going to probably be one of those players that finishes his career as like a 90-plus overall player. But it does worry me because Antoine Darby, I'm pretty sure, has pretty good caps. Or I guess they're not that great. So forget what I was saying. I think that Derek Haslam's going to have an excellent career. He probably has a chance at starting week 1, potentially. And then Eric Hunter, maybe he plays. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I even like Eric Hunter playing free safety. You have to find a place for Derek Haslam to get on the field, though, because he is just that good. So, unfortunately, right now, I don't think we're going to be able to see Stephen Beebe on a roster. I don't think you can see that until you reach week 1. So, we're not going to be able to schedule the team that he does go to, but I'm going to go through here and see if I can't find him. And then if I can find him, I'll let you know. And I did find him. Stephen Beebe is at Army. So, the same thing has happened here in this situation. Something that I'm just now noticing is Miguel Tinker is no longer at Army. So maybe we see Stephen Beebe go to Army and then maybe transfers away at some point. But unfortunately, Stephen Beebe is an Army Black Knight. Kind of taking the same career path as Miguel Tinker. I don't like that the game really did that. It doesn't make much sense to me. And it looks like Miguel Tinker has actually transferred for the second time in his career because he's now at Stanford. So maybe, just maybe, Stephen Beebe will take the same career path as Miguel Tinker, go to Army for a year, and then transfer away from them and go to a school where he's actually going to be able to kind of make a name for himself. So here I am in the custom schedules now, and this is kind of the beef that I have with this game. We've played Washington State at home now for like the last 3 or 4 seasons, and it's just not fair to them. We do have a home and away series against Notre Dame, so we're at home for this game. We're on the road against Cal, on the road against Stanford, but we're home against Tulane, which I think we were last year as well. Or maybe we just didn't play them last year. But we are home against Memphis, so that's good to see. But we do close the game with 4 straight home games. Here's what the schedule looks like to begin. I don't think this is how it's going to play out. And as a matter of fact, I want to play Army in week 1. I think that this makes it interesting. It gives me something to talk about as we enter the beginning part of this season. So we'll play Army week 1. Then we will go on the road to face number 9 Washington for the first time in this series. I did want to play Wisconsin, but I think it's maybe a little too early for the national championship rematch game. So we get a little bit of a tune-up game against Army. Then we go on the road against number 9 Washington. And I'm going to try and find a pretty solid third opponent. I didn't really know what direction to go in with this, but I do know that Morgan Burns, a former receiver that played for us, we encouraged him to transfer last year. Well, he's at Baylor. He's their number 3. So I say we play at home against Baylor. So that will make it so that we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 home games on a season. Only 4 road games, but a couple of them are pretty big, especially with the game on the road against Washington. So I am going to go to the recruiting board and look at everything, but auto recruiting will be turned on. I'm no longer going to be handling recruiting the way that you guys think I will be. I'm really going to just leave it up to the CPU to try and figure things out for us. But, you know, here is a look at the top guys that are interested. Zach Myers is somebody that we could bring in. You also have John Cloud at defensive tackle. So just looking at the top guys here, there are definitely plenty of players that are interested in coming here. Creed Garrison, a huge defensive end. Dennis Van Lanen, a 6'3", 231 power back. There's a lot of guys that are definitely interested in coming to Logan, Utah. And as a matter of fact, I'm not really going to help the CPU out at all. So I'm going to flip the auto recruiting to the on position, and that's going to begin it. I am now taking a hands-off approach to recruiting. The CPU will handle everything, and therefore we're going to be able to enter week 0 of the season 8 regular season. I just hope that they don't go out there and start recruiting like bum players, because we are able to bring in 5 stars. And if we're not going after 5 stars, then shame on the CPU. We haven't added hours to any of these guys, but we did go ahead and offer 35 players here to begin this recruiting cycle. We have 1 quarterback on the recruiting board in Richard Laleta. We are going to be going after Dennis Van Lanen, so that's good to see, because I'd love to be able to bring in a 6'3", 231-pound power running back. Sucks to see we're not really going after any centers at the moment, but you can always bring in guards and move them down to center, and it works out just fine. We are going after Creed Garrison as well. We're not going after that defensive tackle that was interested in us, which I'm not a huge fan of, but the game is going to be going based off of what our team needs are. It does look good to see that we're only going after 4 stars, though. We're not going after any 5 stars. That's one good thing to see. If I said 5 stars, I meant to say that it's good to see that we're not going after any 3 stars. So I will advance 1 more week here. Since I'm not doing any of the scouting, I don't have to put hours on any of these guys. I am curious to see what the CPU is thinking as far as where they're allocating their hours. I just now realized I didn't check any of the preseason All-Americans or anything like that. But here's what they're looking like. Dennis Van Lanen, they're putting 30 hours on him. They're pretty much going to try and disperse their points the best way they possibly can. Are we going to finish with a top 5 recruiting class like we have in the years past? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't really bank on it, to be honest with you. And it does look like they're giving hours based on interest status at the moment. When you go down to the quarterback, they're not putting any points on Laleta, so they're maybe conceding early in that battle potentially. They do feel that we need running backs, so they have 3 running backs that we're going after. We are going after 1 tight end in Devin Carver. On the offensive line, they're going after 3 tackles, 2 guards. Putting no points on Creed Garrison doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, seeing as how he's somebody that I would definitely love to have. I also noticed that they're not going after Zach Myers, which I don't really understand, along with John Cloud. I mean, these are 2 guys that I would be going after if I was running the team, but I'm not running the team anymore. I'm going to be playing the games and everything like that, but I'm not necessarily going to be making those big decisions and as far as who we're bringing in on visits and stuff like that. We've not even spent all of our hours here. I wish the game would do a better job at kind of giving me an idea of where they're going as far as the hours spent. And as a matter of fact, since it's already set up my recruiting board, I may make the decision to turn the auto recruiting back off and then go with what they've given me. They've given me the information on who they want to go after. Now I can put the points where I see fit. I think that would make it fair. I just really didn't want to deal with recruiting because of how fast I'm going to have these seasons go now. I just felt like dealing with recruiting is just going to drag the series on. And it doesn't really matter because we're only going to be finishing a couple of more seasons anyway. As far as the top 25 goes, Wisconsin somehow is the number 1 team, even though we beat them in the playoffs. Penn State, same story. Nebraska, same story. They got us at number 7, really kind of just disrespecting us a little bit here entering season 8. Notre Dame is ranked 17th to begin the year. And then UAB in the Big 12 is ranked 24th. So Steve Ellis, unfortunately for you, buddy, you're going to be losing your number 1 because Donald Stacy is going to definitely be wearing number 1. You can take number 1 back once Donald Stacy graduates. But for now, you're going to be wearing number 2 because Donald Stacy, you're not wearing number 27. That's just not going to happen. And then one thing, Donald Stacy, that we do not allow here at the University of Utah State, or Utah State University, I should say, we're not going to allow this rolled jersey stuff. That's just something that's not going to fly on this roster. You're going to hit me with that tight sleeves. It looks a lot better. But I think that's probably going to do it here for the off-season episode. I think that this is going to be a long episode. I think you guys will definitely appreciate it. I'm excited for Season 8. The way that I view this season going is I imagine that the next episode will probably consist of probably the first 5 games potentially. And then after that, we'll probably end that episode. And then we'll begin play against Notre Dame. And then we have Cal and Stanford. And I think you're probably looking at about 3 episodes for the regular season. Hopefully we make it back to the college football playoff. If so, you're probably looking at another episode for postseason play. And then that's probably it. 4 episodes for Season 8, 2 for Season 9. And then Season 10 will be just 1 episode. We'll get a tune-up game against Army. And then we go on the road to play number 9 Washington to really get this season started. But that is probably going to do it. It is going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next Utah State Dynasty video. See ya.